I'm James Hall. I'm a registered migration agent for Australia and the founder and owner of ANZ Migrate, an Australian-New Zealand migration services company headquartered in Singapore. So I want to talk about the Business Innovation and Investor Program, especially the significant investor stream within the program. There's been a lot of media reports and misinformation about this program of late. It started on January 22nd with an article in The Australian, which said, in very bold claims, that the government had axed the program. The article contained a lot of misinformation, a lot of factual information that was incorrect, and was very likely politically motivated. The Australian newspaper is aligned with the federal opposition, and we are coming up to a new election, which has to occur later this year or next year, and it is likely there were political reasons associated with the timing and content of this article. And then more recently, on February the 8th, we saw an article in the South China Morning Post with the opposing view, saying that the program was open. And this was a much better written article. The details were generally correct. There were a few minor errors, but generally it was a much better quality article and more balanced in the view. However, it did create the misleading idea that the program is actually open at this time and claim to quote the government on this. So we've got different articles that are saying the program is closed, and we've got articles saying the program is open, and very much like Schrodinger's cat, saying that both of these are true, which we know in practical terms can't be the case. So is the program open or is it closed? That's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'll give you a hint, the program is closed for new applications. And this is where some of the confusion happens, because we're talking about the program processing existing applications, and we're talking about people being able to apply with new applications. So there are two things here, and the program is open for existing applications and they are continuing to be processed, but it is not possible to put any new applications in, and it's unlikely that we'll see any opportunity in the future to put new applications under this current program. So let's quickly talk about the history, and I'll talk a bit more about this situation. So the current program involves a two-stage process. The first stage is a provisional visa called a subclass 188. And after the person going to Australia and living in Australia for a certain amount of time and meeting certain requirements, they can apply for permanent residency under the subclass 888. Now, this program was introduced by the Labor government and implemented in July 2012. Shortly after that, in 2013, the opposition came into power. So the Liberal government came into power, and they have continued to manage this program until 2022, so 9 years, well, actually 10 years, I should say, 10 years later, but 9 years of power under the Liberal government before the Labor government returned to a governance of Australia. And so now they're back in power. They're saying quite publicly that the program is not good, that there are lots of issues with it, and it needs to basically stop. And if you read between the lines, they are saying it should stop. And I'll give you some information around this during this discussion. And in fact, if you look at articles, there's one, for example, in September 2022, where the Immigration Minister, Claire O'Neill, said about the Significant Investor Program, I can't see a lot of reasons to maintain it as part of our program. And she also said most Australians would be pretty offended by the idea that we've got a visa that you can buy your way into to get into the country. So she's made very clear statements against the program and made it very clear she doesn't like the program. And the interesting thing is, even the program has multiple streams covering business owners and entrepreneurs and investors. She has focused a lot of the discussion on the significant investor program, which is the $5 million investment, which is the highest tier program within the streams, or the highest stream within the program. A lot of her comments are focused on this, despite the fact that pretty much in all the reviews, the consensus has been this is the most valuable stream within the program and brought the best value to Australia. And in fact, the migration review that the Labor government conducted came out with that exact finding, that the business innovation, which is the business owner pathway, was actually of a negative economic value to Australia. But the significant investor visa had positive impact on Australia and positive economic impact to Australia. And that if any aspect of the program was going to be maintained, it should be the significant investor visa. This was her own review. And she published the findings from this review, and these formed the migration strategy, which further reinforced that the significant investor visa is something that should be kept as an idea or a concept within future programs. Now, this is why we're seeing some of the confusion here, because we've got the review and the strategy saying, hey, there's value in this. And then we've got the minister going out publicly at various conferences and talks saying, I don't like the program's no good, it's no good for Australia, and we should get rid of it. Now, in September 2022, I contributed to an article in IMI Daily, which is an industry magazine for immigration professionals and for the public. And I said that the government, if they did want to stop this, the first step they would be doing was taking away the prioritization of the significant investor visa stream. This was in September 2022. And in fact, a month later, October 28, they implemented exactly that. They implemented a Ministerial Direction 100, which removed the priority processing for the significant investor visa. So it was very clear to us that this was a direction the government wanted to go to in terms of taking away focus on this program and eventually getting rid of it. And we actually saw that just a month later after that prediction. So it's consistent with what we see happening in the industry. Now, since then, the government has further reduced the program. So in the 2022 program year, starting in 2022, they reduced the number of places for new applications by 70%, 70. And then in 2023 program year, so starting in 2023, July, they actually had no places, so 0 places available for the program. So we saw a gradual decrease of the program to the current situation where there are no places available. Now compare this to the Liberal government. During the COVID period, they actually increased the number of places to 13,500 places in the, I think, 2020 program year, starting in 2020. So very, very different approach to this. The Liberal government very supportive of this program and saw value in it and actually put energy and focus into growing the program. But the Labor government has taken the opposite view. Now, part of the reason for this, again, would be political, because the way it's been framed by the Labor government is that this is not a visa for the everyday person. It's something that's contrary to the Australian ideals and Australian way of life, that rich people are just buying their way into Australia. Now, the Labor government is traditionally associated with the workers, with the unions. And so when you're talking about things that benefit big business and the rich, generally these are contrary to their main voting base, at least historically. So it makes sense when you're looking at political motivation to actually use this line of argument, and it's consistent with what the government has been doing. Now, the current situation, I've talked a bit about this already. The government has been decreasing the places for new applications to the current year where it's 0. In the migration strategy, they said there'll be no new places under this current program while they're developing a new program. And the new program, which is part of that migration strategy, is intended to include something similar to the significant investor visa, because the review saw value in that program and suggested that it should be kept. But we will see this reframed and rebadged and essentially in a new program. And this is something that's happened before. We have, for example, the employer-sponsored visa called a subclass 482 or temporary skills shortage visa. This is something that is essentially the same as a previous incarnation, which was the subclass 457. But there was a lot of political backlash, a lot of historical concerns with the 457. So the government abolished the 457, but not in reality. In reality, they introduced a new visa, which was essentially the same, but had a new branding, a new name, and therefore the stigma associated with the old visa had gone. So this is something that there is precedence for. It's something that happens. Often there's political reasons why this is done, but this is the reality of the immigration world that we live in. So the current situation is the program is active. And if you ask the Department of Home Affairs, is the program active? They will say, absolutely, the program is active. Now, remember, the Home Affairs Department is the operational side that is processing these visas. Decisions about directions and the strategy are going to be with the Minister's office, and they have been silent. They haven't made any statements other than what's in the migration strategy about the program. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of competing programs globally and people don't know what's happening, but we can surmise and we can see what's happening effectively by reading between the lines. Now, the program is active. Processing is continuing for applications, existing applications in the queue, albeit very, very slowly. I mean, we're talking around 15 to 20,000 applications already in the queue. And the government has reduced the processing, eventually what translates to the processing workload, because the number of grants each year has been reduced significantly. And in the current program year, it's 1,900, so roughly 2,000 places, which means out of that 15 to 20,000 visas, only less than 2,000 can be granted in this program year. And if that continues next year, it'll also be similar levels. So we are seeing around 7 to 10 years, if the government keeps processing at the same rate, it would be 7 to 10 years before applications that are currently in the queue, at the end of the queue, are actually processed and finalized, which is quite shocking. And I don't think people have really realized that impact on the program. So going back to the situation, the program is active. The processing is continuing, even though it's very, very slow. There are no new applications. That has been reinforced by what the media has, the government has said in the media in terms of the migration strategy, the outcome from that, saying there'd be no new places. So the program is closed for new applications. It is definitely not open, and I would be extremely shocked if it did open again. I think it's in the death throes. The government doesn't want to introduce new applications. And the thing is this, it's a system they don't like. They've criticized, the review said it's not good. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to introduce new applications into a queue of a system which they don't want. And they don't want even the existing applications in the queue to actually go through. So, well, and actually that's a very contentious statement for me to say, and I shouldn't say they don't want the applications to go through. But the thing is, they don't want to grow, they don't want to use this current system, so they don't want to have additional applications for something they don't want. Those applications in the queue, I think there's a question mark over them. I wouldn't be that surprised if the government took more drastic action dealing with those applications in the queue, because there's a huge number of places there that are only going to process very, very slowly. And we really don't know, or the government doesn't know, really what to do with these. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. So that's the situation. The program is active. Existing applications are being processed, albeit very slowly, but there are no new applications. So if you are looking at business or investment migration to Australia, you do need to look at other options. I am hopeful that maybe late 2025, we'll see a new version of the significant investor visa. We almost certainly will not see any version of the business owner pathway, which is the business innovation. And we will likely see an updated version of the entrepreneur stream. We have a lower level investor visa, which is the $2.5 million investment. We probably won't see that, but the government's been quite silent on that. And even in the migration review, it didn't talk about the investor program. It only talked mainly about the business innovation, which is for business owners, and for the significant investor visa, which is the $5 million pathway. So that's a quick roundup situation. If you have any questions about this, you're quite welcome to reach out to us. My company is ANZ Migrate in Singapore. My name is James Hall. I'm a registered migration agent for Australia. And I'd also like to wish everyone a happy Chinese New Year. I'm celebrating today with my family. So we did lots of fireworks and crackers last night. And we're going to go out and visit relatives today. And I wish everyone all the best for the coming year. And if we can help in any way, do reach out to us. That's what we do. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.